Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Welcome to Centerpoint. I'm your host, Dr. Ron Anbar. In this show, we will discuss ways that we can journey to our own centers. This can help us access our inner resources to improve our physical abilities and health, our mental strength, our emotional well-being, and our spirituality. Today, I have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Dr. Kass. Welcome, Louis.
Thanks, Ron. So happy to be here.
So, Dr. Kass wrote me a nice intro that I will read to you, and then we'll go on from there. So, Dr. Kass is a pediatric pulmonologist and sleep medicine specialist, and he's been practicing in Mount Kisco, New York, and Norwalk, Connecticut for over 25 years. Dr. Kass has been utilizing hypnosis with his patients for 15 years now. It was 2006 when, frustrated by his limited ability to work with certain patients suffering from conditions helped most effectively with hypnosis, that he took his first hypnosis workshop in Syracuse, New York. From that moment forward, Dr. Kass describes to anyone who will listen how hypnosis changed his practice of medicine and, in fact, changed him in the most profound and meaningful of ways. He just wishes he could remember the man who ran that hypnosis course in Syracuse those many years ago. And Dr. Kass, that's exactly what I was hoping we would talk about today, is your experiences with hypnosis. I'm hoping you'll share with our audience how you even found out about hypnosis and why you wanted to learn about it and how it did change your career. So how did you find out?
Well, yeah, Ron, I figured that your first line would be, well, that was me. That was me, Ron Anbar, who organized that course of hypnosis in Syracuse in 2006.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason that I took that course is that I had so many patients that suffered from a condition called vocal cord dysfunction, which is a condition where it feels like it's very hard to breathe, and it's kind of like a tick of the vocal cords. And there's no lung problem per se, but it kind of acts like asthma, and it's helped best by hypnosis. But at the time, many people would refer patients with vocal cord dysfunction, or VCD as it's called, to speech therapists and psychologists, and so I would keep sending these patients out of my practice, my pulmonary practice, and I'd never see them again until one of your coworkers, an old friend of mine, said, "You should meet my partner, Dr. Anbar, and because he does hypnosis and he takes very good care of these patients." So I took your course, and my life has been amazing ever since.
How frequently did you see patients with vocal cord dysfunction?
I would say it's probably at least 2 or 3 times a week.
So very, very common. And how well did hypnosis work for those patients in your hands once you learned to use it?
It's been almost the only thing that seems to work best and longest.
And did it work for most patients?
Yes.
Can you explain what you do? Like, what do you teach a patient who has VCD?
Well,
you don't use a watch, do you?
Pardon?
Do you dangle a watch in front of them and tell them you're getting sleepy?
Well, it's funny. The first question I ask is, I say, what do you know about hypnosis? And, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And almost everybody thinks of the old man with the long flowing white beard dangling that watch. And we giggle about that, and I tell them that it's nothing like that. I said, and then I ask them a true or false question. I say, true or false? I will be controlling your mind. And they question, true? And I say, no, false, false. I said, I need you to control your mind because I need you to make really good choices. I said, I need you to make choices about any suggestions that I might provide to help you feel better. And I begin to tell them, as they hopefully start relaxing, that this breathing that they're feeling sometimes might feel less than they'd like it to feel, but that they might remember other times in their life when breathing was so easy and free and fun, and they were running around like crazy and on the soccer field and scoring goals, and how easy that was. And something like that, Ron, is a way of taking them back to a memory. And as we say in hypnosis, anything that you can do once, you can do again. And your body knows how to do it, your mind knows how to do it, and you are the boss of, your mind controls your body, but you are the boss of your mind.
So you teach them to think differently by recalling a time when the breathing was fine.
Correct.
And does that work right away for patients?
Sometimes it works very quickly, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time. There are a lot of times that there's stuff under the surface. Maybe there's a reason that maybe they don't realize it, but maybe there's a reason that it's preferable right now not to be running so quickly. Maybe they'd rather not be playing on the lacrosse team right now. And so there's a lot of psychosocial stressors that are under the surface at times that need to be addressed as well, and that takes a little bit longer.
So how do you help a patient who, let's say, doesn't want to do this sport? They feel forced to do it by their parent or their coach, and the vocal cord dysfunction, the breathing is affected because they really don't want to do this sport. How do you help them?
Well, it all starts with, like we learned from the very beginning in medical school, Ron. It's about history. Talking to the patient and establishing rapport and establishing this relationship with a patient where you're present with the patient, you're making eye contact and being there for the patient and hearing them and listening to them, and your physical and emotional presence allows them to be physically and emotionally present, and that partnership allows honesty and the truth to come out.
I agree that rapport is so important, and yet with the advent of electronic medical records where physicians are spending time looking at the computer and not looking at the patient, how does that affect your practice?
Well, that is a real pet peeve of mine. I'm still a bit old-fashioned where I take paper notes in front of me while I'm with the patient, and I deal with the documenting later. I don't remember, Ron, whether you do this. I know it's something that I picked up over the years. But I record most of the hypnosis sessions so that I can then audio record them so that I can send the session to the patient electronically so that they can then have that recording to practice with during the week. So there's also that record that I can also resort back to for note-taking if I need to.
Yeah, recording can be very helpful for many patients. I often don't record because I don't want the patient to learn to be dependent on my voice and what we do in the session, but certainly for some patients that's really, really helpful. But if we can switch gears a moment, you're also a sleep specialist, and I know you've done some hypnosis work with patients who have sleep problems. Could you tell us a representative case of how it helped?
Well, it's funny. I once made a bet with one of our other colleagues about whether hypnosis would be useful in a condition like narcolepsy. Narcolepsy, a condition marked by very, very little chemical in the body responsible for keeping us awake. And when I was very early in my training, I had this idea in my head that you either have the chemical or you don't. And if you don't have the chemical, you can't be awake. And our colleague, Dr. Cohen, he said to me, take the bet then. I'll bet you that you can get people to feel more awake with hypnosis. So I remember that summer. That summer, I spent with 8 patients of mine who were having terrible side effects from the medication we tend to use for narcolepsy to help keep them awake. And I thought, well, these are great patients to use hypnosis with. And long story short, utilizing hypnosis helped these 8 patients between the ages of 12 and 19 improve their wakefulness without medication.
And without side effects.
And without side effects. And I remember one of the greatest images from these patients was I asked one patient that when they think of their narcolepsy in their body, what image comes to mind? And this young woman said, when I think of narcolepsy, I think of my nerves as these thin, frail, little thready things incapable of transmitting any information or power. And I said, well, if you were going to then imagine in your mind how to fix that condition, what would come into your imagination? And she said, I would want to retrofit my body with thick fiber optic cables capable of transmitting power beyond anybody's belief. And in her mind, and then through hypnosis, she imagined these thick fiber optic cables with blinding light and speed and capable of transmitting wakefulness and power that she was able to control in her mind by the way that she handled a crank. And it was remarkable.
Incredible, incredible. You mentioned Dr. Cohen, so the full name is Dr. Daniel Cohen, and for the professional listeners in our audience, he wrote the Bible of children's hypnosis, and he is actually working on another edition that should be coming out sometime in 2022, and he's also going to be a future guest in the show, so it'll be great to talk to him and catch up with Dr. Cohen. So, can you when we do hypnosis for many years, some amazing stories unfold. I'm wondering if you can think of a particular patient that you worked with that you were quite impressed and maybe shocked at what happened.
I was torn between thinking of two. There is I'll start with one, and if we have time for a second, I'd love to share that one also. But, you know, Ron, you and I frequently talk about our belief in certain powers, certain forces, elements happen at certain times for certain reasons. And you and I happened to share a meal together in San Diego right around the time that I was consulted by this 22-year-old young woman who I'd known for many, many years. And you had been telling me about all the work that you had done with the subconscious. And to that point in time, I had not ventured that way. So I didn't really know much. I hadn't done much with the subconscious, but I'd heard you speak about how the subconscious is a person's best friend, essentially. The subconscious knows everything about you, is working on your behalf, and knows everything in your best interest, and just guides you. It's very powerful for me to hear you speak that way. And wouldn't you know it, that Monday morning, this woman comes in, this woman who for years I knew is a strong, confident high school student, knew exactly where she was going. And the reason she came in is that she was feeling like she lost her confidence, and she didn't know what her next step was. And the first thing that came into my mind was her subconscious knows. And to make a very long story short, I spent the entire summer working with this young woman weekly for 3 months, gradually, little by little, working towards getting her to meet her subconscious. I introduced the concept of her that very first day, and about how there's this power within her, the subconscious, your subconscious, that knows exactly how to help you. And maybe someday you'd like to meet her. And at first she was very, very skeptical. She was a very practical, goal-oriented woman, and she really didn't have any interest or belief, really. But week by week, suddenly by week 11, she felt she was ready. And through ideomotor signaling, communication through signals through the fingers, she had her first communication with her subconscious. And then she spent some time alone with her subconscious. And the week after that, we used a pendulum to have additional communications. And that very next week, she made the decision she'd been putting off all summer long, lacking confidence, and she now has returned to this confident person that I'd known for years. And I just look at her beaming and just I feel her energy whenever I see her. And seeing her when she comes in for regular follow-up, just sometimes it's more social than anything now. She gives me strength to keep going in this wonderful, empowering field called hypnosis.
Do you know why she regained confidence? Was it just that she recognized the power within, or did the subconscious tell her something that you either know or don't know about that changed the way she thought about herself?
Well, when I was asking her questions, and I pulled up these notes, I had asked the subconscious, before I had them sort of meet each other in a private place in her mind, I asked her subconscious, do you have ways of making her feel confident now? And her subconscious answered yes. Are you able to share this with her now? The answer is yes. If you don't share it now, will you be able to share it with her later? And the subconscious said no. And I asked, if you don't share it now, will this young woman be okay? And the subconscious responded, I don't know. And so I said, it was at that point I said to the patient, I said, at this point, I think it would be a great idea if you and your subconscious spend some time together without me and just had some private time to meet and greet. And
that's amazing. So you showed that the patient healed herself. She reached her center, which is what our show is all about, and there she found the solution she needed. She did not need to share it with you to get better. It's a little bit like neuro-linguistic programming, the idea that the facilitator can just help the patient understand that they can help themselves and let the patient take charge. So, again, this is such a powerful demonstration of the power of the mind, the power of how hypnosis can help people reach their inner core, their subconscious. Just a quick definition about ideomotors, that's when the fingers move on their own, like the fingers have their own idea, but it's actually the subconscious moving them, which is one way in which the subconscious can interact with a therapist and the patient, although some patients learn to do it for themselves. When we come back, we're going to ask you, Louis, for your other memorable case. And this is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar and our special guest, Dr. Louis Kass.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Anbar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Anbar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Anbar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
More exhilarating talk. HealthyLife.net.
welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar and our special guest, Dr. Louis Kass, who has shared with us some amazing stories from his practice as a pediatric pulmonologist and sleep specialist. Louis, you talked about two memorable cases. I hope you could share the second one with us now.
The second case I just felt was so timely in this COVID era that we're in. I have a 16-year-old young man who's been using hypnosis since I believe he was 12, perhaps. He's a patient that has some difficulty with asthma and chronic pain and difficulty controlling his blood pressure and his breathing. But when COVID hit his family's household, he was very nervous. This young man sleeps breathing on a ventilator at night, a mechanical ventilator to help him breathe. So he's very nervous. So he decided on his own, without speaking to me, that he was going to use hypnosis as well as a physical gesture to ward off COVID. And the physical gesture he chose was to take his right hand and grab his left wrist, and his left hand and grab his right wrist. And he just knew that if he did that, he believed he would be protected from COVID. And when COVID ran through the family house, the first time, he was the only one who didn't get it. And when COVID ran through the house the second time, he was the only one who didn't get it, even though everybody and himself was vaccinated. And then this beautiful singer went down to Disney and was part of 60 people from his community to sing at Disney in Florida. And 40 people came down with COVID, except him. And so I just thought I'd share that.
So do you think hypnosis can actually affect immune function?
I believe that it does something, yes.
So do I. I'm just wondering, because there's a lot we don't understand about the power of the mind, but we know, for example, when people are stressed, they're more prone to illness. Cancer is a dysfunction of the immune system, and so when people are really stressed, the immune system is disrupted, they're more prone to even get something like cancer. So I do believe hypnosis affects the immune system. There's just a lot to learn about it.
Yeah.
So in the last few moments that we have together, and again, thank you so much for joining us today, Louis, what do you want the general public to know about hypnosis? I'm on a mission to get the word out, but it's been frustratingly slow, the uptake, people understanding they can help themselves, and that hypnosis is a great tool for that. What do you want to tell people?
Well, you know, it's one wishes that hypnosis had a different word. One wishes, I think, that hypnosis, that there was a different word, that there was a far-reaching word that wasn't hypnosis. Everybody knows nowadays the words like mindfulness and meditation and therapy, and they have ideas about those things being helpful. People hear the word hypnosis, and just like we said at the top of the show, the first thing that comes to mind is the old guy dangling the watch. I wish that people would think of hypnosis, and the first thing that they would think of might be Indiana Jones, or Luke Skywalker, or somebody that is able to conjure the force, somebody who is able to be able to take control of their thoughts and change their thoughts, and by changing the thought, you change the feeling, and by changing the feeling, you change your reality. And that's what I wish. I wish that there was a different initial image from that word hypnosis.
Because hypnosis has many years with a particular image. You're absolutely right. What you're talking about in changing your thoughts and changing your life, that's manifestation. That's how people can be in charge of their reality and what happens to them.
Yes, yeah.
And in a sense, you changed your own life. How did you changed your career around hypnosis, right? You looked at things differently, and you manifest things differently. Is there an example from perhaps your own life where that happened, where you wanted something to change and you thought about it and projected it, and then you saw it happening?
Well, I remember that very first hypnosis course, and one of the driving points was language, and how important language is. So many people take for granted how they speak, and how words affect people. For example, in my practice of sleep medicine, parents will come in all the time and they will use the phrase, "Her sleep is killing me. He's up all night, he's killing me," right in front of their kids. And we know they don't mean that. But do you think that the 6-year-old hearing the mother say that they're killing me doesn't register to some degree? And suddenly I just realized how important words were. And ever since then, I just place so much emphasis on words and listening and speaking slowly to make sure that the correct words come out. And also to make sure that when words are spoken poorly chosen words in front of children, that I offer some correction. So when someone comes into my pulmonary practice and says that my kid has the worst asthma in the world, I'll say, do you mean to tell me that your child is having a lot of difficulty with asthma control right now?
Words are so powerful. In fact, again, for our listeners, if you don't choose to learn to use hypnosis for yourself, at least learn about hypnosis and learn about the power of words. It will transform your life. If you're a professional, it'll transform your patient's life. Lewis said the patient registers what he or she hears, and then it plays out. And if the poor 6-year-old thinks, "I'm killing my parent," imagine how that would affect how they will interact with the parent and life in general. So thank you for making that very, very important point about words. In fact, this actually is a segue to next week's show with Dr. Linda Thompson. She is a nurse practitioner who works with children. She has a big emphasis on words. We'll pick up on that in our next week's show. So, Lewis, my good friend, thank you so much for spending a little time with us today, and I'm hoping maybe you'll visit again because we have so much more to talk about, as you know.
Ron, thanks for having me. This was so much fun for me too. In a heartbeat, I'll be back.
Thank you so much. So this is Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar. We'll be right back after these messages.
Make-A-Wish has been granting life-changing wishes for children and families for over 40 years. A wish is something that gives children the opportunity to look outside their illness and restore a sense of childhood back to the child. With the help of donors and more than 43,000 worldwide volunteers, Make-A-Wish has collectively granted more than 520,000 wishes worldwide. Dr. Anbar has referred many patients to Make-A-Wish. To make a donation, go to worldwish.org. That's worldwish.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
Reach your health and fitness goals. Whether you want to lose weight, learn to dance, build muscle, or just live healthy, Beachbody gives you unlimited access to the nation's most popular fitness and weight loss solutions. Visit our advertiser page and click on Beachbody now.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
All positive talk with a mature edge. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar. That was a wonderful time we had with Dr. Louis Kass. I'm so glad you had a chance to hear some of his thoughts, and we will have him back on the show for sure. So in this segment, I like to share patient stories of my own. Last week we talked about how I got involved in medicine, and today actually I want to share a story that's fictional, but represented some of my thoughts in medical school with how what we were learning and how applicable it would be to the world in which we practice. And one of the ways that I express myself and work out feelings is write stories, sometimes fiction. And I'm going to share this story with you now that I wrote as a third-year medical student. The knocking at the splintered wooden door persisted despite its apparent futility. Awakened, the frail man wearily put on his nightrobe and groped his way through the darkness to the table in the corner. He felt for the thin stick of wax, and finding it, he edged to the fireplace. His cough stirred the smoldering coals, releasing a small glow of smoky warmth. A brisk wave of his left hand brought a small flame to life, and he lit the wispy wick of his crude candle. He slowly walked into the front room and sighed when the knocking ceased at the sight of a moving light within the crumbling house. He opened the door a crack to reveal a woman clutching a small child to her chest. She stood rigidly in the bitterly cold wind, which stirred the charred trees in the moonlight behind her. The man grimaced when he saw her scarred, bare feet that had crossed the splintered ice and crevices in the decaying road. The woman pressed herself into the house. "Healer, you must help me." The man slowly closed the door as she tenderly unwrapped the moldy blankets, revealing her shivering child. And now, since the howling wind did not dominate inside the shack, the child's sad, repetitive coughing was heard. "Good God," whispered the man. "When did your child become so ill?" He reached over and touched the child's hot forehead. "I don't know if I can help," he croaked. "Oh, healer, I'm afraid. Please cure him." The man set the candle on the barren floor and took the damp child in his arms. The boy was too weak to protest, and although his glassy eyes were open, they did not focus. The man sadly gazed at the limp child in his arms. "He has a terrible fever," she whispered. "That he does," said the man as he turned. "Could you bring the candle?" The man resolutely carried the boy to his bedroom and placed him on a towel in front of the fireplace. "Please come," he exclaimed as he noticed his shadow was lengthening by the candlelight. "Hold this." He handed her the boy's wet shirt. She clutched the garment to her tearful eyes. He struggled to finish undressing the child, an occasional shudder differentiating him from a corpse. Grasping a glass from the table, he dipped it into a black cauldron near the fireplace, rinsed it several times, and poured a half glass of his previous warm water over the naked child. "At least I can reduce the fever," he muttered to himself. The thin, rough towel slowly darkened as the man repeatedly dried the child. Each time the boy was dry, the man poured another glass of warm water on his torso. Soon the boy began shaking. "This is good," whispered the man. "When the boy is shivering, it means that his fever is coming down." The boy started protesting when another splash of water hit his skin and began to cry when his eyes focused on the strange man. His mother quickly picked him up and cradled him in her arms. "Everything is going to be all right," she told him. "Mama is here. You're going to be just fine." But his face appeared ghostly pale in the light of the flickering flame. "Mama," he said weakly. She kissed him fondly on his brow. The man gestured towards the bed on which she laid the boy and covered him with the man's thick blanket. Her son's eyes closed as gasps punctuated his shallow breath. "I'll prepare some warm tea," the man said. She was too depressed to refuse. They drank the unsweetened brew at the table. She was sitting on the chair and the man was leaning against the near wall. "If only I had some of my antibiotics," said the man. "Even a couple of doses would cure him." The woman could not understand. "Is he going to live, healer?" He didn't want to reply. "Most of what I know is useless," he exclaimed instead. "All I learned, all I studied, all I practiced, all that does him no good. I'm like a fireman without water. How can I practice medicine in times like these? I might as well practice witchcraft. I have enough equipment for that." She was not listening. She watched as her son gasped and then was very still. She rushed over to him. She kissed him and told him that soon they would go home. She hit the bed with her clenched fist and saw his body swayed as the bed moved. She cried softly at first and then began wailing, allowing her face to conceal his face as if to cover the terrible truth. After a long time, she bundled her treasure, held him, and sang him a lullaby. The man shuddered as the candle flame died. And this story reflected for me the fear I had in medical school. I was learning as a student to use technology, to use medications to help my patients. But I wondered, suppose there's a nuclear holocaust. Suppose I'm stuck in the wilderness with no medical tools. What good would I be? How can I practice medicine without my tools? And it took me another 15, 20 years to recognize that my presence as a physician, as a healer next to the patient is healing. That as a physician, as a healer, we can help patients not just with medications and technology, but with words and love and care and our presence and our reassurance. This is what I learned on my own as I moved forward in my medical practice. I wish that in medical school we had been taught that this is such an important part of medicine. In fact, I would venture to say that love and care and rapport and good wishes and presence is more important to most patients than all of the medical technology which most physicians depend on and most patients expect. And our society needs to realize that, to recognize that. Many enlightened people already know this, but the vast majority of people who are suffering, the vast number of healthcare providers who are doing their very best to help people alleviate their suffering, don't avail themselves of the most powerful tools, the tools of the mind, that of the practitioner, and even more importantly, the mind of the patient, him or herself. And as Dr. Kass demonstrated with the marvelous cases he talked about, by teaching a patient to reach her own subconscious, by teaching a patient to affect his own immune system, patients amaze us with their abilities to heal themselves. This I have seen over and over and over again, and this is why it's so important that the listeners to this program tell others, tell their family members, tell their friends, tell their neighbors, you can help yourself. If something is not going right, seek help from within. Seek a clinician who will help you reach into yourself to find a solution for your problems. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.
More than 30,000 children and adults of every race and ethnic group in the U.S. have cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a disease causing long-lasting lung infections, limiting the ability to breathe over time. Dr. Anbar participated in research that helped advance survival of cystic fibrosis patients by more than 20 years. He encourages you to donate to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation to help find a cure. It's easy to donate. Go to cff.org. That's cff.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
Constant Contact and your small business make a perfect fit for marketing. They give you what you need to succeed. Fast and easy email marketing at your fingertips. Visit the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and click on Constant Contact to start your marketing.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar. So in this last segment, as we have done each week, I want to talk to you about what you can do on your own based on what I have learned from hypnosis. In today's shows, we talked about how to reach our center point by listening to our subconscious, by being creative. And you can do that as well, even without hypnosis. And the main thing here is to find a time where your mind can be quieted. So often in our modern society, we keep our minds busy. If there's a free moment, we might look at our smartphone and play a game or answer texts. Or we might turn on the television and watch a streamed show or a live show for that matter. But we don't take time to be with ourselves. And when you do take time with yourself and you pose a question to yourself, such as, what should I do in this circumstance? What advice would I like to give myself in dealing with this situation? And quiet the mind, you will hear answers. I will tell you the answers from your subconscious, but it doesn't really matter where it's from as long as it's useful. Then the question comes, how do you quiet your mind? There are many ways. A simple one is go take a walk. Pay attention to nature. Focus on what you're seeing or hearing, and thereby you'll quiet your mind. Another way of quieting your mind from the world of meditation is focus on your breath. Imagine a sailboat on the tip of your breastbone and watch the sailboat go up as you inhale and down as you exhale. And just keep watching. That will quiet your mind. You could listen to some soft music, almost background music, and let your mind wander. That can quiet your mind. Another way of listening to your mind is to ask yourself, if someone was going to give me advice, what would they say? Now, interestingly, just this past week, I read an article about a research study that showed that when you think of what somebody else would tell you, a different part of your mind is activated than your left brain, where much of the logical thinking takes place. When you ask yourself a question, what should I do about this? The left brain says, well, you might do this. But if you say, I wonder what my friend would say about this, the right brain becomes engaged. The right brain has more blood flow, as seen on magnetic resonance imaging studies. That's the research that was done, and that's what it showed. And I think that's very, very interesting, because I believe much of subconscious work takes place in the right brain. Let me explain how that works. The left brain is where our speech center is. So when I ask you, what do you see in front of you, and you see a dog and say, I'm seeing a dog, that's your left brain speaking. They've actually done studies in people whose right and left brain are not connected because they might have had surgery or they were born in an unusual abnormality, but their brains are not connected. And you might show the right brain a cat and show the left brain a dog, and then you say, what are you seeing? And the person will say, I'm seeing a dog, because the left brain is speaking. But if you tell the patient, point with your left hand to what you're seeing, the left hand is controlled by the right brain, the patient will point to a cat. And that shows you that we do have two brains inside of us. And I believe that the subconscious is oftentimes in the right brain, because the left brain says, I don't know what the subconscious had to say. This is news to me. Maybe it was because the answer was not in the left brain to start with. It was in the right brain, in the subconscious. So a way to hear yourself better is to imagine somebody else telling you the answer. Many of the listeners might be familiar with Gestalt therapy, where you imagine talking to someone who's in front of you. It's the same kind of principle, and maybe that's part of the power of Gestalt therapy. Also, another way of being creative is to ask yourself to think of seemingly nonsense solutions to a problem. So, for example, let's say, I'm going to think of an example since I work with teens. Let's say you have a test you're worried about tomorrow, and you don't know how to address it. And you say to yourself, well, let me think of something crazy. Well, I could jump over the moon just like that cow did, might come to mind, which seems like nonsense. But anything that comes to mind is coming from somewhere in your mind, and probably, if it's a crazy little idea, it's coming from your subconscious. And then it can serve as a metaphor. So, for example, if you think, I can deal with my test tomorrow by jumping over it, just like the cow jumped over the moon, what's the metaphor say? Maybe it says, this will be pretty easy. You'll get over it pretty quickly. You can achieve great heights that you didn't think were possible. You get to interpret your own metaphor. If you're working with a therapist, you can ask them for their opinion, but ultimately, it's your opinion that counts. So if you said in this example I'm giving you, this means I can get to great heights, to ones I didn't think I could get to, then your subconscious telling you, you'll do well on the test. You'll do better than you can be expected. And then you can take that and run with it. So again, the concept is, think of a silly answer, a nonsense answer. But anything you think about is a metaphor. And then take some time to think for yourself, how does this metaphor apply to me? I mentioned that next week our guest will be Dr. Linda Thompson. Not only is she a specialist in using words, she's also a specialist of using metaphors with children. We'll get into that discussion next week about how you can create metaphors for yourself, and also, if you're a parent, for your child. When you listen to yourself and get answers, you're empowered. When you help your child listen to themselves and get answers, you're helping to empower them. And again, all of this can be done without use of hypnosis, without use of meditation, without special incantations. This is just available to each one of us if we just take a moment to listen, to think for ourselves, and see what comes out. Also, when an idea comes up that makes sense to you, praise yourself. Be happy with yourself. Understand there's more of it from where it came from. Life can be long. Life can be full of challenges. But whatever challenge we meet, there's always a way. Sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes we have to think a long time. Dr. Lewis Kass described a patient that took 11 weeks to get ready to talk to her subconscious. But once she did, she transformed. So give yourself a chance, and if you're a parent, give your child a chance to listen to themselves. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your child. And I guarantee that an answer will come. Sometimes parents get frustrated because it takes so long for the child to get it, especially when we're talking about teenagers. And parents will say, I tell my teens so many times what to do, or give them so many chances, and they always blow it. And then I tell them this anecdote. When your child was 2 years old or younger and learning to walk, he or she tripped many times and got up and started walking again. And it's a process. It took a number of months to learn to walk steadily. This is true of your teenager as well. When they're solving problems in their life, they're going to fall and trip and pick themselves up again. And your job as an effective parent is to believe in your child, empower your child to continue to work on improving themselves, and they will. Thank you for joining us for this program. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.